Welcome to the Grand Archive Academy here at Maindeck. I'm Dan, and I'll be your Academy guide today as we deep dive into Mercurial Heart's new Tristan Shadowdancer Recollection decks. We have a lot of ground to cover today, so consider the chapters below our lesson plan for the day, and feel free to skip to whichever parts you need to learn. Now, if you're ready to learn how to strike from the shadows, then grab your pencil and your notebook, because class has begun. To begin our lesson for the day, let's make sure you're all in the right place. The Recollection decks are a new product launching with Set 4 Mercurial Heart. There are 2 of these Recollection deck products, and at the end of this video, we'll be directing you to another video from our friends at TCGs covering the Sylvie Recollection deck. We'll be covering the Tristan deck, which is a Wind Assassin deck focused on the fan favorite character from Dawn of Ashes. Now, out of the box, these decks are a bit more powerful than the previous starter deck products, but they're also a bit more to learn. In each box, you'll get a full, ready-to-play 60-card deck with a 12-card material deck. This deck is packed with exciting new cards that you can only get in the Recollection deck, but don't worry. There's a side box that includes the remaining cards to get full playsets of every card inside this deck, whether it's new or a reprint. Additionally, the box comes with some amazing accessories. Not only do you get a durable magnetic box with beautiful art and gold accents, you'll get a full set of 100 durable Dragon Shield sleeves featuring the Tristan Shadowdancer artwork, a life counter that includes a small counter you can use for Tristan's preparation counters, and a couple of card dividers. Finally, you'll get 3 special booster packs of Mercurial Heart inside. Our review copy did not include these to not spoil the set for us, but when you buy your copy, these packs are like regular Mercurial Heart boosters, except there's a rare chance that you'll get a Tristan or Sylvie level 3 CSR in them. As for the deck itself, the Tristan Recollection deck is built around the Wind element and the Umbra Advanced element at level 3. The playstyle of this Wind Assassin deck is in the mid-range control end of the spectrum, meaning you'll often want to focus on controlling the board and building value, whether that be cards in hand or preparation counters. That's because Tristan's level 3 unleashes a ferocious endgame with a combo-like feel. Her powerful Umbra cards can help her build an army of shadows and give you options to expend your preparation counters to deliver a fatal blow. Of the 2 new Recollection decks, the Tristan deck is a touch more complicated than the Sylvie deck and is perfect for players who prefer to control the game to an inevitable victory. Now, let's dive into how it works. Within these decks, new keywords from Mercurial Heart will collide with older mechanics from previous sets. To set you up for academic success, we're going to go over both the old and new concepts that you'll be exposed to in the Tristan Recollection deck. Prepare X and preparation counters. A core mechanic of the Assassin class is preparing to strike. Various effects in the deck will give your champion preparation counters, which can be spent later when activating cards with the Prepare X mechanic in order to gain bonus effects. To prepare a card, remove counters from your champion equal to the listed number, and then gain the bonus effect on the card. If you don't have enough preparation counters, you can't get the prepare effect, but you can still play the card without its prepare effect. Floating Memory. During your materialize phase, you can banish any number of cards with floating memory from your graveyard to pay for that much of the memory cost of the card you are materializing. Make sure to do this before randomly banishing anything from your memory to pay for the rest of the cost if needed. And watch out for class and level bonus on your floating memory. Your champion must currently meet the requirement listed in order to use the floating memory. Stealth. Units with stealth cannot be the target of an attack unless the attacker has the True Sight ability. Note that this only impacts attacks. They are still vulnerable to the effects of actions or other types of abilities. Spell Shroud. Units with Spell Shroud cannot be the target of a spell card or an effect that is treated as a spell. Note that this only impacts spells. Actions without the spell subtype, as well as attacks and non-spell abilities, can still target them. Fast Activation. Fast Activation allows a card to be activated as if it had the fast timing, meaning any time during either player's turn when that player has opportunity to use an effect. Use these cards to surprise your opponent or to get extra effects in your turn by activating them during your recollection phase, before you recollect your memory. Negate. Some cards can negate card activations or abilities. These are played in response to a card or ability being activated or triggering, and will cause the card or ability to have no effect and not enter play. Recover. Recover will always have a number attached to it, and it allows you to remove that much damage from your champion. If an effect would cause you to recover more than the amount of damage you have taken, you remove as much as you can. Efficiency. Cards with efficiency get a cost reduction equal to your champion's current level. For example, if your champion is level 2, this card would cost 2 less to activate. Summon and tokens. Summon effects will create a token card in play representing something. These token cards are not actual Grand Archive cards, though the Recollection deck includes cards to represent exactly the tokens it can create. When a token is summoned, take an appropriate token card, or if you run out, a coin, die, a Pokemon card, shoe, or just whatever you have available, and place it into play representing that object. The Tristan deck can summon ominous Shadow Fantasia ally tokens that can take attacks for her or follow her into battle. When a token leaves play, instead of going to your graveyard or banishment, it is simply removed from the game, as it is not a real card. Otherwise, the token will act like a normal card of the appropriate type while it is in play. Next, let's talk about the 3 new keywords you'll see in this deck. Agility. Agility is a new keyword that gives Tristan a tempo boost. Agility is always followed by a number, but in this deck, that number is always 3. When a card grants you Agility 3, at the beginning of that turn's end phase, you must choose 3 cards in your memory and return them to your hand, allowing you to use them to play more cards at fast speed. If multiple cards grant you Agility 3, each will trigger and resolve individually at the beginning of the end phase. Unblockable. Unblockable attacks cannot be intercepted, and ignore taunt as well. These attacks can freely target whatever they want, including the opposing champion, and allies can't stand in their way. Stealth, however, will still prevent an unblockable attack from targeting the stealth target unless the attacker has true sight. Ambush. This is a new keyword describing an effect that we've seen on a previous card, Lurking Assailant. If an ambush unit is in play during the retaliation step of an attack, they can rest to retaliate against that attacker even if they are not the defending unit. This can also allow multiple allies to retaliate against a single attacker when a single unit is attacked. Now, let's dive into the deck list and look at each card in detail. The full deck list is displayed here on the screen. You'll get a full 60 card deck and 12 card material deck built for you. Additionally, there is a box within the product that contains the missing copies to make a full playset of all cards in the deck. This is just the suggested configuration, but you are free to tweak the deck as you see fit. Now, let's dive into each card individually, starting with the material deck. Your game starts with the basic Spirit of Wind, allowing you to draw 7 cards and enabling the wind element. Tristan's champion levels are up next. Her level 1 provides you a simple choice between gaining a preparation counter or gaining agility 3 for the turn. Out of the box, you'll often want to pick the preparation counter to build up the card draw on her level 2, but the agility option can be nice when you have a lot of fast speed cards to play, especially after tweaking the deck. Her level 2 is straightforward but powerful. Draw 1 card if she has 2 preparation counters, and draw 2 cards if she has 4. Do your best to get as much value from this as possible, but don't be afraid to level and only get 1 card draw if your opponent is putting pressure on you. Tristan Shadowdancer is where the fun begins. On enter, she'll summon 2 ominous shadow tokens and gain a preparation counter. And at fast speed, you can remove 2 preparation counters from her to redirect attacks to your shadows. Let's take a look at what those do. Ominous shadow tokens are Fantasia allies with 1 power, 4 life, and some unique abilities. Not only are their attacks unblockable, anytime they would be dealt damage, you prevent 3 of it. That makes them extremely resilient to all but the strongest attacks and spells in the game. However, this power comes at a cost. They can only declare attacks against targets that Tristan has already hit that turn. But anytime Tristan dives in, you can expect the shadows to follow up and dish out their damage too. However, remember that an Awake Shadow can still retaliate against any attack that is declared against it, or redirected to it. As for the rest of the material deck, you'll get the new card Assassin's Mantle, an unassuming regalia that can be banished to prevent a damage and gain a preparation counter. The Curved Dagger is a reprinted weapon with 1 power and 1 durability, but it has an Assassin class bonus that will give it 2 power when attacking an ally. useful for taking out critical targets. Life Essence Amulet provides a way to draw a card when an ally dies during your opponent's turn. Poison Dagger is a well-known assassin staple that can greatly increase your damage output, especially when used with multiple shadow attacks, but it takes a turn to set up as it enters the field rested. Gearstride Gloves are an excellent wind regalia that will give you a preparation counter on enter, and then can be used once you have reached level 2 to reduce the cost of a reaction card that might be critically needed to survive. Finally, there are 3 powerful Umbra regalia in the deck, which can only be materialized once you have reached Tristan's level 3. Dusksoul Stone is a dual-purpose card that both hates on graveyards and protects your shadows. As a cost to materialize it, you also have to banish 2 allies from either player's graveyard. This is best used to remove key allies with floating memory or recursion targets to keep your opponent off balance, but remember that if no single graveyard has 2 allies, you can't pay the cost and thus cannot materialize this. Once it's in play, it will prevent spells from targeting your shadows as long as it remains in play, but you can also banish it at any time to banish 2 more cards of your choice from a single graveyard. Malignant Athame is an exciting new weapon with 1 power and 2 durability that can totally disrupt the opponent. When you hit their champion with an attack using the Athame, you can choose to force them to swap the cards in their hand with the cards in their memory. If they're holding up a lot of cards to interact with you, they'll be forced to use them on this attack, or they'll end up with their memory in hand instead. Or if they were planning to level up next turn, you can force the swap to potentially reduce the number of cards they have in memory to level with, or force them to lose cards they wanted to hold onto when they try to level. Finally, Shadeblood Coating provides a very powerful preparation counter gain to set up for that final blow. This gives up to 3 units you control the ability to gain a preparation counter on hit. Use this to dive in with Tristan and her 2 shadows as you build up to the game-ending Shadow Strike. Now let's dive into the main deck. Starting with the allies, we have Sable Remnant, a great early game ally that becomes a 2/1 once you reach an assassin level, and has floating memory no matter what level you're on. Notably, the Remnant is also an automaton, like all of the allies in the main deck. This matters for Sirocco Operative, a crucial card for building up your resources. Try to only play the Operative once you're at an assassin level, so you can get to draw a card into memory on enter, and try to also have another automaton in play so you can gain the preparation counter on enter as well. Shimmercloak Assassin is an easy automaton to keep in play for the Operative as a 2/2 with stealth, and is also a great card to use to push damage or control your opponent's board, as it's hard to attack back. And once you've reached an assassin level, Cloaked Executioner can be played at fast speed, letting you respond to an attack by playing it and retaliating against the attacker safely to potentially take out a threatening ally or just deal extra damage to your opponent's champion. This control-oriented deck includes a lot of actions to support your strategy and manage your opponent as well. Idle Thoughts is a solid floating memory card that will let you switch the order of your upcoming draws to maximize their potential. Surveil the Winds is a card that glues your strategy together, helping you build preparation counters while keeping your card count up, much like Sirocco Operative. And Mastermind Scheme can provide a massive preparation counter boost, but at a hefty cost, until you reach higher levels. Still, this can be worth it, setting you up for card draw with Tristan level 2, or for your game-ending combos. There's no shortage of cards to control the game with here either. Arrow Trap is a flexible removal action that can either bounce an attacker to hand, or can be prepared to destroy it instead. Exploit Vulnerability can likewise be prepared to give your champion or any of your allies a lethal attack or retaliation that turn, and it draws a card to replace itself as well. Stifling Trap is a tricky new card that will deal damage to an ally and also negate any on-enter triggers that came from that ally when it's played in response to the triggers. You can play it normally from hand, but if you want to, you can also remove 2 preparation counters to play it right out of your memory, even with no cards in hand. And Incapacitate is an incredible new assassin toy that allows you to completely negate any action card as it's being activated, and assassins only have to pay 2 for it. There are several attacks in the deck as well, and these can be used either to keep control of the board or to put damage pressure on your opponent. Thieving Cut is reprinted from Fractured Crown with new artwork, but the same great effect. A 3 damage attack for 2 that you can prepare to draw a card if it hits anything. Betraying Blade is a new wind attack that deals 2 damage for 2 cost, but you can spend 2 more on attack to gain a preparation counter from it as well. The class bonus floating memory on this makes it a great early game board control play that can be used later to efficiently reach your higher levels. And Slice and Dice is a crazy new attack that gives you a 3 damage for 2 cost base attack. Not bad, just for dealing with allies early on, but if you remove 3 preparation counters as you play it and it hits, your champion will immediately get to perform a second attack for 6 damage. That attack can be on the same target or a different one, letting you use this either to close the game or to cleanly deal with 2 opposing threats. Finally, let's look at the Umbra Advanced Element cards, which are some of the huge payoffs that you can get only once you've reached level 3. Gloamspire Headhunter is the lone Umbra ally here, another automaton that has 1 power, 2 life, and costs 3 to activate. It has stealth as well, making it hard to get rid of, which will annoy your opponent as the on-ally hit ability will ensure anything she damages dies unless the opponent pays 3 to prevent it. Grim Foreboding is a super powerful fast action that will summon another Ominous Shadow token, then buff all your Shadow's power by 1 and grant you Agility 3 that turn, so you'll get the full 3 cost back into your hand to use on your opponent's turn. Fast Speed allows this card to be used during the Recollection phase, which will let you then immediately recollect that cost back so you can push for a game-ending attack that very turn. Shadow Resonance is a cheap action that does a little of everything. It recovers 2, draws a card to replace itself, and can give you a shadow as well. You'll obviously most often want to use this when you have the preparation counters to get the shadow. And Shifting Mirage can let Tristan escape damage entirely. At 2 cost with the class bonus, it fits perfectly into a 3-card hand from Agility 3, and can not only catch the opponent off guard by playing it in response to an attack to stealth Tristan unless they pay 2, it will also summon a shadow. If they choose to pay the 2, you still have the option of redirecting the attack to the new shadow you just got, and don't forget to retaliate with it to punish them for trying. 2 Umbra attacks close out the deck list. First, Haunting Demise is a cheap 1-cost attack for 3 damage that continues Umbra's curse mechanic. When it hits a champion, it will be placed at the bottom of their lineage, and while there, their champion will gain the effect to be dealt 1 unpreventable damage at the beginning of each of their recollection phases. Once you stick 1 or 2 of these, you can simply protect yourself until you win. Finally, Shadow Strike is the headlining attack of the Tristan Recollection deck. A 2-cost, 4 damage attack with Prepare X, allowing you to spend any amount of preparation counters on it. For each counter spent, it will gain +1 damage, and if you spend any at all, it will be unblockable as well. This attack all but ensures Tristan will hit, and hard, and her shadows can swing in to finish the job. Now, let's go over a few strategy tips to help you have better first games with this deck. For newer players, you'll find plenty to explore here as this deck is packed with ways to control the game. At the end of the day though, you need to get to the stage where you can unleash a lot of damage on your opponent, so make sure to be selective about what you feel threatened by and what damage you can take, as you build up your resources until you can unleash your deadly shadow arts. Your early game should be focused on building those resources and preventing your opponent from doing too much damage to you. Tristan can hit like a truck in the late game, so you won't often want to race your opponent for damage, instead preferring to use your allies and attacks to gang up on opposing allies. Cards like Sable Remnant and Sirocco Operative can both build your resources while joining forces to clear most allies off of the board. And Surveil the Winds should be played when possible, to build those counters while you dig for more cards to play. And though Thieving Cut and Exploit Vulnerability will put you down a preparation counter to prepare, removing a key threat with them can be more important, and they may just find you another card to build the counter back with anyway. Your level 2 is one of the best ways to build up your hand so that you can actually play your cards out in the late game. Unless the pressure is mounting on you, wait to level to 2 until you have built the 4 preparation counters to get the draw 2 with. It can be a good idea to take a turn to materialize Gearstride Gloves before going to 2, helping you reach that count and setting you up to be able to respond to problems more efficiently later. If more time is still needed, you can materialize Poison Dagger anytime just to have it ready for when it's time to dive in for the kill, as you continue to use your cards in hand to accrue resources. Once you can reach level 3 with some cards in hand and preparation counters on Tristan, you're ready to start looking for the lethal lines. And there are plenty of lines that can build a lot of damage quickly. Many are based on having ominous shadows, and the more shadows you have, the better off you will be. Remember that Grim Foreboding will summon another shadow and can buff all their power, and can be used during the Recollection phase, letting you pick up all the cards used to pay for it when you recollect, so you can play more cards that turn. The combination of Grim Foreboding, Poison Dagger, and a Shadow Strike will quickly add up to massive unblockable damage, with each shadow hitting for effectively 3, and your champ attack hitting for 1 more thanks to the dagger as well. But if you want to deal even more damage and aren't worried about things that can block your attack, Poison Dagger and a prepared Slice and Dice are already 12 damage on their own, with each shadow still getting to crack in for more. Now, finding the right time to spring your lethal turn can be the trick. There's a tension here between using Tristan's ability to redirect attacks to the shadows and saving your preparation counters for your lethal plays. Your other Umbra cards can let you play more survival when it makes sense, stealthing your champion, recovering damage dealt to you, and destroying big late-game allies will keep you in the game, and it can be just as effective to play defensively while you let the ticking damage from Haunting Demise close out the game. Now, we have played a bunch of games using the Tristan and Sylvie Recollection decks, and I'm happy to say that not only are these two decks fairly evenly balanced, but they play at a higher power level than any of the previous Grand Archive starter deck products. And in the box, you'll have extra copies of everything in case you prefer how certain cards play over others. But beyond that, there are tons of cards to consider from previous Grand Archive sets that you could use to upgrade this Tristan Recollection deck, so let's look at a few of those. It's notable that the Material deck is missing a Divine Relic, something pretty much standard for competitive play. Including one can be a little costly, but amazingly, all 3 Divine Relics from sets 1 through 3 would work well in Win Tristan. Grand Crusader's Ring has the highest price tag, but you can't go wrong with drawing an extra card on your turn. Quicksilver Grail from Fractured Crown can be used proactively with Poison Dagger to surprise your opponent by playing the dagger at the end of their turn, giving them almost no time to react to it as you wake it up and dive in for damage on the next turn. Additionally, since Tristan plays fairly defensively, this can be used to put secret defensive tools into play, like Safeguard Amulet, that your opponent will have to guess is there or run right into. And Temporal Spectrometer can save you lots of card value when you level to 2 or 3 with it. And since we're playing Wind, Beseech the Winds becomes a great option to consider alongside the Spectrometer to get its full value a little bit faster. Another regalia that deserves consideration is Windwalker Boots, which can generate a few prep counters on its own and turn into another card in hand late in the game when that's more needed. The only stipulation is that you need to not attack with your champion in order to gain the counter each turn, but against many decks you won't need to attack all the time anyway, making it free value to play. Korhazi Outlook is an amazing fit in this deck, only missing out on not being an automaton to work well with Sirocco Operative. But despite that, she gives you an incredible ability to force opponents' interaction out early in your turn by giving them a terrible choice. Using their damage prevention cards now, in response to the Outlook's ability, but before your game-ending cards are played, or not use them at all. This can build preparation counters early, and in the late game, protect your lethal turn or let you adapt to the opponent before diving in. Reclaim is a set 1 card that can accrue a lot of value with allies that have good on-enter abilities, and Sirocco Operative is the perfect card to want to reclaim and replay over and over to build resources while setting up to level. The Floating Memory compounds the value you get with it too. And as a 2-cost fast speed action, an Agility 3 will help you keep enough cards in hand to be able to use it. And speaking of taking advantage of Agility 3, Innervate Agility could make a lot of sense in here. Each Tristan level comes with its own on-enter ability, and levels 2 and 3 especially can be very powerful to be able to use multiple times in a game. This defensive card will let Tristan protect herself and her board from either attacks or spells, recover, and regain value on the re-level. Try to include plenty of floating memory alongside this to make it easy to regain that level again. Now, Dream Fairy is neither an assassin card nor an automaton, but it is a card that is never wrong to play in at least a couple of copies in your Win deck. This is a premier way out of matches with powerful allies like the Majestic Spirit, but even in the early game, she is just as useful for holding off damage while plinking in a little on her own. Against non-ally decks, Tristan may find it a little harder to control their damage, as the shadows can't redirect fireballs and cosmic bolts, but in those cases, consider Veiling Breeze, which can hold off damage from anything for a turn, buying you the time you need to crack back. And if you want to play with some fun Set 3 Umbra options, Umbra Sight can be used to accrue more cards at the cost of taking damage from the curse. But with Tristan's tools to hold off attacks, this damage could be negligible or even healed with Shadow Resonance. And Demon's Aim might not be a card you want to play in the main deck, but if your opponent is using stealth to protect themselves, this is a surefire way to get your Shadow Strike to strike true, even through the stealth. And finally, keep your eyes on the Mercurial Heart set list, where cards like Charged Assailant are appearing that can bolster your Automaton theme while helping you keep your interaction available. This direction could require a more significant ally focus in the deck, but a change to the deck to focus on early game allies more than late game Umbra cards could actually end up being just as effective. Regardless of how you tweak the deck, I'm sure you will love playing with the new Tristan Wind Assassin Recollection deck. Now, for your next class, feel free to click on either of these videos. One of them is our friends at TalkGA going over the new Sylvie Recollection deck, and the other is one of our previous lessons, in case you missed that class. I hope you all enjoyed this video, thank you so much for watching, and class is dismissed.